This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we welcome you to a new week, but the end of a month. Today, the last day of April. Hope it's been a good one for you. Say hello to all of you out there in TV, radio, and wherever else land. We've had a busy weekend. The NFL draft is over. And what a draft it was, especially if you lived in the southern part of the universe. The SEC had the most players taken for the 12th year in a row. Take that, Danny Cannell. And all you other haters out there. Look at this. Listen to this. SEC, 53 picks. ACC moving up with 45. The Big Ten with 33. Remember when they used to run college football. Pac-12 with 30. Would someone hand me a microscope so I can find the Big 12? Big 12, please pick up courtesy phone number 1. It's over for you. Pick up your check and go home. You're done. How about this nugget? When Sean Dion Hamilton was selected by the Redskins, all 11 of the Tide's 2016 season-opening defensive starters had been selected in the last 2 NFL drafts. That's an amazing number. I saw something including free agent contracts. I think 17 players from the Tide were taken. Wow. Nick Saban, things are really slipping in Tuscaloosa. Anyway, that's certainly the big story over the weekend. A lot of incredible stories out of Dallas. Well, good to have all of you on board. It was a busy weekend. I'll tell you about my sojourn to the heart of the SEC, Birmingham. Interesting times there over the weekend. We'll talk about that. We'll get your phone calls at 855-24. What is the number here, Ryan? 855-242. Been out of town for 2 days. I forgot the number. 855-242-7285. I need to just write that on my hand. How about, could I get it tattooed on my hand?
Sure.
Why not? Bring her in. Let's get to the calls at 855-242-7285 and begin by talking to Brandon. Brandon, you are first up. Really glad to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Glad for you to have me on. I was going to kind of briefly touch on that meeting they had. I guess it was the induction ceremony into the Hall of Fame over the weekend. A lot of numbers have been coming out, like he said, the starting 11 all being inducted into the NFL draft since 2016. Nick Saban's got more first-round draft picks than losses in his career.
Yeah.
There's on and on stats. But my question is to you, Dabo Swinney seemed really chummy in that video that I seen, and a lot of people still believe he'll be the replacement. Some people won't believe. I want to ask you from professional experience, first off, if you're an AD, are you going after Dabo? Is that still your number one?
Yeah, let me give some context here, Brandon, because I was the MC of that event that you're referring to, and I was with Dabo that morning, and we sat literally next to each other on that dais. So I had a pretty good observation of what he said. Dabo had his entire AD, his coaches, Board of Trustee members came up. I joked to the crowd that the Board of Trustees. I think I'm the reason for all these rumors. I joked that the Board of Trustees came up with Dabo because they were afraid to leave him alone with Greg Byrne in the audience and all the other Alabama fans and boosters. Everyone has pretty much agreed that Dabo would never take that job. Although I will offer this: being with him, talking to his family, understanding the importance of Saturday night to him, and maybe I got caught up in his emotion being in his hometown. But I would not say, or I wouldn't say never, because I think Alabama, if Saban leaves in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, will come after him hard.
Right.
And I think there is a temptation, and this is just me watching him. We didn't talk about Alabama other than when he played there, and his coach was there, Gene Stallings, but I just watched him in that room Saturday night, Brandon, and that is unbelievably special to him. So is Clemson. That's his home. That's where he lives. And, one person made the argument to me earlier, well, why would he leave Clemson, where he's the best coach in Clemson history, to go to Alabama, where if he won 4 national championships, he'd still probably be the 3rd best coach in Alabama history. But, I don't think that matters to him because he played there. That's his school. That's his wife's school. And I think under the right set of circumstances, he could be tempted. I'm not saying he's going. I'm just saying he could be tempted.
I kind of agree with you, too. I just think that there's something there for him to look at. And then my last point on that is if you're in Dabo's shoes and you're looking, and I'm not downgrading Clemson because gosh knows they are a great football team, is the next 20 years, if you're Dabo and you're put in that spot, on a measure of success, is it Alabama or is it Clemson? And I hope you have a good day Monday.
Thank you very much. And I want to say one more because I think this. I made some comments this morning on WJOX about this, and predictably a lot of people have reacted. But no one knows. I don't think Dabo Swinney knows. I know he just signed a new $8 or $9 or $10 million a year contract. He's not going tomorrow. And the argument is why would he ever leave an ideal situation? Well, 5 years ago, if you had asked Jimbo Fisher, would you ever leave Florida State to go to Texas A&M? The answer would have been, you're crazy. He turned down LSU, maybe twice. You just never know when it's your alma mater. And Dabo Swinney, with a national championship and with 3 consecutive college football playoff appearances, it's not as if he is unproven. I mean, on his worst day, he's probably the 3rd or 4th best coach in the country right now. He may be higher than that. I made the comment this morning, and I'll make it here, obviously, that he is probably the only person, or the best suited person, I should say, to take Saban's place. I don't think you can move some hot coach in there and do it. Dabo knows the territory. People know who he is. And I think that's why if you brought in Jim Harbaugh or any other big-name coach, they would have a difficult time because they wouldn't have played there, and Dabo did play there.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Darriel, I think, is going to be honored next year at the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame banquet as the best caller in Georgia history. Darriel, go right ahead.
Well, it first be Larry Munson. But you know what? There's no way I see Dabo Swinney ever leaving Clemson to go somewhere else. And this is why. He's at an established program, okay? They've won a national championship. You know what it's like to fall behind the footsteps of a legend. No matter, I mean, it will be a no-win situation for him.
By the way, you are correct.
And go anywhere else.
But Darriel, you never know when someone is ready to go back to a place that they have previously lived and feel comfortable in.
Maybe so, but not to follow Nick Saban. Maybe to follow the coach after Nick Saban.
Maybe you're right. But my only argument, though, Darriel, is that he's the most qualified, though. I'm
probably agree with that. But I don't think there's a dollar amount Alabama can lay on the table that Clemson will not match.
Well, I totally agree with you on that.
But I'm gonna tell you something. Dabo Swinney, you gotta keep this in. You gotta keep this in mind. Okay, Dabo Swinney, nor has Kirby Smart. They had not had to overcome what I think really defines how good of a football coach is, and that's the loss of big-time assistant coaches. We're just starting to see Alabama now have to experience that. Saban's always been able to fill the hole with another big-time defensive coordinator, another big-time offensive coordinator.
No, you're right.
That ain't the case this year. So we'll see.
No, I mean Alabama is in terms of coordinators. I mean they are at a place they haven't been in a long time.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna tell you, Clemson. You might go on and piss them in, Paul. I don't see how they cannot make the 14th playoff. They only had 3 players that went in the draft. The first one went in the 3rd round. They have to be loaded. And that cupcake schedule they have, their schedule is easier actually than Alabama and Georgia's schedule. By the rating, by the power strength of the schedule is much easier. Hey, I noticed Georgia got all their players drafted that were supposed to, except for Trent Thompson. Another 5-star bust. I mean, why that guy decided to not come back his senior year, I have no idea what he was thinking. I mean, even if he came back, he wasn't going to go in the first 3 rounds. I mean, when you're out on a dirt road and your eyes are bloodshot and they call the law, your days of going in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft are over, okay? Big time. But he could at least come back for his senior year. I have no idea. I don't know what he was thinking. I mean, he never has lived up to the expectations at Georgia. But I think he signed as a free agent, but then he went undrafted to top that off. I mean, what deal? He got nothing. He got no degree. He in the NFL. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Paul, I wanted to ask you about your boy there, Paul. You Notre Dame guy. What does he think about that graduate leaving Notre Dame that was going to Oklahoma and now he's coming to Georgia? How about that?
Yeah, no. Well, he's not here today. I mean, it's a Monday, so Kubiak.
Oh, okay. He don't work on Mondays.
He's busy today. Will he be back tomorrow? No, travel day.
Travel
Wednesday,
day to work. 20 miles.
Day.
They get travel days.
What day is Kubiak back, Randy?
I believe he comes back Thursday.
He'll be back Thursday.
Yeah, he needs a couple of days to recuperate.
Did he make it to work this morning?
He had to go on a trip. So when Mark goes on a trip, he needs a day to travel and a day to recover.
Travel to where?
He's actually in Athens today.
He's in Athens. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was going to ask him, how did that float his boat? Because you know what, I was thinking about this over the weekend. I want John and Kubiak and all them to understand one thing, okay? They didn't build this ship. This ship was built long before they boarded it, okay? All they got to do is float the ship.
Darryl, I have to ask you this because every time you say that, and I want to bring Randy and John back in. Randy has been doing other things. He's played a big role in our show lately, but John's been here since day one. I mean, why are you such a hater?
I'm not a hater.
Why are you such a hater on John Hayes?
Hey, this is ESPN, okay? What do we got from ESPN taking the show to North Carolina, okay? First, you got to know, don't tell you have to go first stay in. But here's the deal, okay? So you got a wider perspective now. You can reach out to more people. I can understand that, okay? As far as connection wise, but how's the show changed any for the good? I ain't saying it's bad, but how did?
John, would you answer this guy here who he's part of the Vickers crowd?
I honestly don't even know what to say, Darryl. I mean, you're still watching the show after 5 years at ESPN, so you must like something about it.
So the show wasn't on TV before, and now it is to millions of fans out there. Yeah. So why is that bad? It's a broader audience. So is a bigger audience better?
Just learn how to do a top 10 poll. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm asking.
There the truth comes out.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
You should be able to do a top 10 poll player. I ain't going to find a local drone downtown.
Hey, Darryl, do me this favor before you go. What was better about the show then than now?
What was better about the show then than now? Well,
Darryl got more airtime.
I can easily answer that. Jim from Crestwood would be one answer.
Yeah, Darryl, you answer the same way. Forget one caller is not enough to make a show different.
But I understand that. But something should be better, right? I should be able to think of something better right now than what it used to be. I can't. So I ain't saying it's worse. I can't think of anything that's
all you
really
ever do
better.
Is talk about how much better the show used to be. That's your same take every day. Show was better. Show was better. I'm just asking you as a interested party, what was better? We want to learn, Darryl.
Paul, let's think about some of the people that's contributed to the show.
I'll tell you what's better. This is much better right here. The lines, when the phone call's not dropping and crap like that's much better. We haven't experienced any of that crap from Cumulus or Clueless or whoever they were used for. But you know what? That's infrastructure right there. It should be like that. It's ESPN. But the bottom line is you can be one of two things, John. You can be a producer or you can be a producer. See what I'm saying? See you, Paul.
One thing you have to admire about Darryl, if you missed his take 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, he'll still give you the same take today.
It sounds like that he just replayed the same thing that he played for us on Friday.
I mean, can you think in the history of rock and roll or modern music, somebody has had like one hit, never had another hit, a one-hit wonder? That is Darryl. Same take every day.
Paul, that's exactly why he didn't make the list.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Mark Kubiak joins us. Mark Kubiak, who's supposed to be in Georgia today.
I'm in Georgia. I'm standing around all these Georgia people. We're listening to the show. I had to step out because I had to apologize to all these fans for Darryl. And so I'm coming back in. And
that's his school. I mean, Mark is at the
University
of Georgia today, finishing up something that we were involved with about a week and a half ago. We're doing a project, and Mark went back. I couldn't make it today, but Mark is. So, Mark, give us your take on Darriel.
It's the same thing, and everybody's sitting here, Paul. The show's on. Everybody in the athletic facilities watching it, and they're saying, "Let's hear what they have to say." I'm like, "Oh, you got a dog call on here. Let's hear what he has to say." And before he started, I told him everything that he was going to say. Oh, Georgia's going to be good. Alabama stinks. Why does John and Mark think they run the show? All the same stuff. Just because he didn't make a top 10 list. All right, there. Here's a top 10 list for you. Your top 10 worst calls. Man. Worst callers. That's it.
The worst callers in the history of the show?
Yeah, I think so.
Would you put Darriel on that list?
I think he's top 5 right now. I need Hayes to confirm it, but he's right up there.
Yeah, we put the list together. We trolled Mark Darriel on Friday. I don't think he realized it, but I put him on a list with Matt in San Antonio.
He had no idea that he was getting trolled.
And that's the problem today. It's like Darriel for a week now has been so caught up on this top 10 caller list that we specifically made to troll him and get him to react this way, and he's just playing into our hands. And at this point, I'm starting to feel bad for the guy.
Just putty in our hands, Paul. That's all Darriel is to us.
There it is. We're showing the list now, Mark. This is the top Finebaum Show Caller Mock Draft 3.0. These are the callers that really honestly could work on their craft. We start Joe in Red Bay, Millie in Rolla, Darriel in Columbus, Matt in San Antonio, Ed in Niantic. That group is lumped together in my mind.
That's a fantastic group.
Of this list, I mean, some of these people on this list I really like as callers. I find Tom in Cleveland to be hilarious.
Hi, Paul. Paul, I mean, come on. We know what he's going to say.
I think
Paul.
Buckeye Earl is very
Paul.
funny. Donnie is growing on me.
I don't know if Joe in Red Bay is number 1. That's tough. That's a tough list.
I mean, Joe's got to give us a weather report first in North Alabama. That's his first thing he does.
Hey, Mark, here's the question. You're down on the ground there in Athens. And, Paul, I'm curious if you think this as well. Are Georgia fans embarrassed by Darriel? Like, do they want to even be associated with this guy?
Their cause. They're all looking for somebody better. It's like they have this quarterback that's been there forever that's not really winning games. So they're looking for somebody to step in. So this is a call-out to all dog fans. We're looking for a new starter.
And by the way, for those who are listening on radio, Mark Kubiak is right now at the University of Georgia football complex. So he is speaking from the inner sanctum there.
We're live. We're live here, Paul. And I'll tell you what, I got to run. I'll do a little snooping around to see if I can find somebody. And maybe by 5 or 6, I can have somebody call back with a better take.
Okay, good deal, Mark.
All right.
Mark Kubiak, obviously watching the show at the University of Georgia.
Feet on the street.
I think he mainly wanted to let us know that he wasn't out playing golf today.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
We'll talk to Webb Padgett. We welcome in the talk of the town. We just got through playing, for those of you on radio, his winning putt. Well, first of all, congratulations. This has to be an amazing moment for a freshman.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was.
Well, let's start with the round. I mean, this is as good as it gets. I mean, you're playing on television. You're playing your rival. You're playing for the SEC championship. What was the mindset of the team, first of all, going into Sunday morning?
Well, we just knew we had a big task at hand. Alabama's a great team. They've always been a great program, with their history. And, we just know that we're playing great players and make more putts than them. And thankfully we did.
Yeah, so this is I was about to say this is something you dream about, but you haven't had that long to dream. You're only a freshman. But you mentioned in the interview with Peter Burns being confident, and that seems to be your MO. But help me understand this. I'm guessing, I don't play golf very well, but confidence is pretty important in golf, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's very important. You can miss a couple putts out there and you can get down on yourself, and it's a doubting game, but you just got to stay strong, stay confident, and you play your best golf when you're very confident, and I feel like you just got to have some cockiness to yourself, and thankfully I do, and that helped me prevail this week.
So I've always wondered about this in talking to a number of PGA players. They always say it's probably tougher to win in a Ryder Cup, President's Cup than maybe in an individual tournament because everyone is pulling for you. You're carrying the team. So this was on the 16th, is that right? Or what hole was it that you made this putt?
It was on 18.
18, I'm sorry. Well, I apologize. We just got through watching you make a putt on the 16th. So it comes down to the final hole. This is going to win it for your team. First of all, you got to get 20 feet away, right?
15 to 20 feet.
15. Yeah, there's some debate. Which one was it?
Let's just split. Let's go about 17.
Okay. By the way, you should be a diplomat. You just went ahead and split the difference. It looked like 17 feet 4 inches to me. So you're a fast player. Take us through. You lined the putt up. You didn't waste a lot of time. You knew which way it was going to break. Obviously, was it a big break?
Yeah, it was about a foot and a half break. Especially with the speed I had to play with it. It was straight downhill, and he had about an 8 to 10 footer left. So I didn't want to leave myself anything left. So it was just a dying speed, and I wanted to make sure when it went in the cup that it was just dying into the hole. And doing that, I had to play a little extra break.
Now, if you don't play golf, you don't understand what you were doing. But, I mean, you knew pretty quickly that putt was going in, didn't you?
Yeah, you can kind of tell when you play a lot of golf, especially with greens like that. They're rolling very pure. And I just kind of knew 3-4 feet out it was on my line, and you can just see the ball kind of curling, and I knew it wasn't going to go low side or stay high side. And, I started kind of using some body English there, just walking it in a little bit.
I mean, you did the classic walk-off. Yeah,
I did. And, that's just probably from watching Tiger all these years, looking up to him and, just trying to be like him,
Well, by the way, Tiger could have used some of those putting skills a few weeks ago at Augusta. I want to ask you about that because I've read that Tiger, I mean, you can't help but grow up in your era and not be enamored by Tiger Woods. When did you start playing golf? What age?
I started playing about when I was 2 years old. And, my dad he'd take me out on the golf course when I was about 5, and we'd go look for golf balls, try to find golf balls that people lost. And, it was just late after he got home from work, we'd just go play golf, and that's how I got started.
Yeah, this was before the era of Top Golf. So was Tiger the guy? I mean, he was winning everything, I guess, when you were a little kid, wasn't he?
Yeah, I actually didn't get to experience him, in his early 2000s, but kind of towards, his mid-2000s where he was making, that 15-footer at Torrey Pines for the U.S. Open to get into the playoff. I remember watching that vividly, and the chip on 16 at Augusta when he chipped that in, and it was dramatic. And that's the Tiger I was used to watching.
Well, speaking of legendary golfers, you've been around one as an alum. Jason Duffner, who won the PGA 5 years ago, sent out a tweet congratulating the Auburn golf team, and that had to be pretty special to all of you. Talk about how often. I think Jason lives down there. How often do you guys see Jason?
We see him a little bit. It depends on his schedule, but past couple weeks we see him a lot because he's had some downtime. But the really cool thing was that he tweeted that, and he had to play a final round Sunday at the tournament, so he was keeping it updated on his phone and watching it before he played, and that's just really cool that he cares that much about our program and just that much about us, and he's just a great guy to have around.
Yeah, no, he's. I know how involved he is down there. So, if you win any championship at Auburn, everyone knows you got to get back to Auburn. You're not that far away. Everyone knows what the next step is, and that is rowing Toomer's Corner. We got a couple of pictures up for those who aren't watching on television, listening on the radio. There's the championship trophy and Toomer's Corner being rolled. What about it, Wells? Have you participated? I mean, you're still pretty young at Auburn. You're a freshman, but this had to be an incredibly cool moment for you.
It's very cool. We've rolled Toomers for football games and basketball games, but being able to roll it for the golf team is very special. We had a lot of people out there and a lot of fans, and just having that support back home is huge, especially the guys on our team that weren't there, that were supporting us back here. That tournament's for them too, and they contributed a lot back home, and they helped push us, and it's just great having a team like that at Auburn, and honestly, people say Auburn's a school for the best athletes and best student athletes, and that truly is what it is. And it's just great that I have the privilege to be able to do that here. And, they gave me the opportunity here to make that putt and play that match and win that tournament. So it's just been a special time.
What has it been like today? I mean, I'm sure it's hard to get your bearings. The season's not over. You got a lot of golf left with the NCAA, but take us through your day, assuming you made it to class today.
Well, actually, we don't have class right now. We're preparing for finals. I actually woke up at like 5:30 this morning because I've been so used to waking up that early for the tournament this whole week. And woke up at 5:30, typed my 3-page paper that was due, and did that, went back to sleep, and then got back up. I actually caught the replay from yesterday, and me and my roommate, we watched the replay of it, and it's crazy. Me and him were more nervous watching that today than we actually were playing it yesterday.
Did you have any bad dreams as you're watching your putt again, and maybe this time it doesn't go in?
No, I just just watching that coverage, it's just weird how we were so nervous. We're like, are we sure we're actually going to win this? Because you see all the momentum change, and it was just really cool to watch us come out on top and just see the coverage. It was just really cool to see us on TV and watch that celebration again.
So are you in the middle of finals, or just about to get to the finals?
We're starting finals. We have some guys that have taken them today and tomorrow, and thankfully mine are in a couple of days, so I'll have some time to study for those.
You'll have no trouble. You're the biggest name on campus right now, so enjoy it. Listen, I know the NCAA tournament is yet to come. Hopefully, we're talking to you guys in a couple of weeks, bringing home a trophy there.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just important for us. We're celebrating right now, but we know we still have business to take care of, and we're getting ready for regionals, and we need to take care of business there.
Well, congratulations again. Fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Padgett made the winning 15-footer. Some think it was a little bit longer. We've decided 17 feet 4 inches. Regardless, he made it. A walk-off putt to win the SEC Men's Golf Championship.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
"Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash?"
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So it was all good.
A lot of conversation about callers during the first hour. I think the majority of it on Darriel, who had pretty much a train wreck of a phone call. John Hayes and Randy, and especially Mark Kubiak called us from Athens, excoriated Darriel. Darriel apparently is back and would like to respond.
Okay, first of all, that was the Auburn guy that made the putt, right, on Sunday to win the thing. That was him. That was a nice putt. There wasn't much break to it. Let me ask you this real quick. You remember when well, I was just thinking about putts. Remember when John Daly ended up winning the British Open in sudden death? But that guy had to make it like a 200-foot putt.
Constantine Roca, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to make sure I understand this, okay? I was up well known up and down the West Coast for years on Jim Rome's show, okay? There was a bar in Southern California from L.A. to San Diego that I can go into, drinks were on the house every freaking time, okay? So then I come to Paul Finebaum later on, find out who he is, start calling him. So my resume looks pretty good, I would say, okay? But all of a sudden now I'm a bad caller. So I got a question for John. Is John there?
Fire away, Darriel. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay,
not until 7 anyway.
Criticism, but since I'm such a bad caller, I want you to give me an example of what a good caller is. I'm Paul Finebaum, okay? John, you're next. Let me hear.
Darriel, I didn't sign up to do an exercise here on a Monday afternoon.
When you go criticize, come on. You got to be able to give me some example of what a good call sounds like.
Hey, Darriel, for your edification, John.
I don't talk about Penn State enough, right?
Darriel, would you slow down for a second?
Sure.
John hosted his own radio show in a major market this fall
Okay.
I think John Hayes is very capable of being on the radio. Okay,
here's one thing, Paul.
Are you capable?
The problem is, though, when you think about it, Penn State, a degree in journalism, I've been with ESPN for 6 years, hosted my own show in a top market. But that resume does not compare to being a Jim Rome and Finebaum show caller. That is one thing that I know for sure.
That's what made this show different than all the rest of them. You already heard everything up to now and all the other sports radio shows. That's what I think you're not getting here. I think you're missing that. There's a reason this show.
Hey, Darriel, since very few people alive even know who Jim Rome is, I do. Why don't you tell the young people in the audience what you once did on the Jim Rome radio show?
What I once did on the Jim Rome radio show.
You're trying to convince us that's part of your repertoire, that you used to be a top caller to Jim Rome.
Oh, I did. I went right to the front of the line every time. And even on this Talk 2 show on ESPN too, when it first come out. Right to the line. I was part of a 30-30 Jim Rome did.
Okay, Darriel. Hey, Darriel. By the way, Darriel, if we were sitting in a bar and you told me that, I would say something obscene like, "Who gives a?"
Oh, that's because you don't like Jim Rome. That's a no-brainer. I'm with you on that. I don't like Jim Rome. I thought the best thing that ever happened to Jim Rome was when Jim Everett slammed him for calling him Christian.
But Darriel, my point to you is not that Jim Rome is good or bad. At one time, I listened to his show. I thought he was hilarious. I haven't, one thing, the mistake Jim Rome made is that he's doing the same show now in his 50s that he did in his 20s, and you can't do that. You have to adapt.
Exactly. You got to be able to adapt. And you know what? I'm sure if I talk more about Penn State and the Big Ten, but that's not what this is the SEC show. That's what it was built off of. That's the foundation of it. You built it, But, I'm
Thanks
sure
for
if I
telling
talk
me
more
that. I
about
didn't know.
that, the Big Ten, I'm sure that would be a great caller. Like Andy from Ohio.
Darriel, do you know your problem as a caller? I'm going to help you here. You don't communicate. You're like, you sound to me like you're at a Chick-fil-A drive-in in the middle of a hurricane, right? And you're trying to order, and the guy can't hear you. Why don't you talk to the host as opposed to scream at the host?
In the South, you know what a John is, right? What we refer to as a John. That's where you go take a Randy. You know what I'm saying? Speaking of which, wasn't you surprised that every time you see all the player drafted? It's amazing that I don't see why none of them, all of them end up going to Pittsburgh. That's where they were born to play.
Okay, Darriel, I got to break in here because you called in for a reason, and I still don't know what the reason was.
Well, I called in for a reason because I want John to give me an example, but he can't do it. He can sit there and bump his
John, you want to respond to this?
He can't give me an example. He can't show me, so that tells me all I need to know. He goes out to wonder.
Yeah.
Let's ask Squirrel what a good call is, Paul. He knows.
Squirrel does know what a good caller is. Hello, Squirrel.
Well, what is a good caller? A good caller to me is inspiring, compelling, comes to mind.
Sapient.
I was just getting ready to say sapient.
That's my word. By the way, that's my word of the day.
that was going to be the last one, but those are the attributes I look for in original.
Originality. That's Darriel's problem. He's not original.
Some of your stars are not making the list too well. It's it's been
Squirrel,
kind of amusing the past.
I don't really want to hear about what happened the way it used to be. Okay.
You know what's interesting,
Exactly.
and I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about it. We use the S word a lot when it comes to calls, and that word is sapient, and it's important. But I'm starting to realize there's another S word, and it's smart. And most of these callers are just not that, and I think that might be the problem here. Darriel's not very.
Joe,
he's not very smart.
Joe a real smart caller.
And Joe from Red Bay, I love the guy, but he's really just not that smart.
John is now handing out.
Oh, he's going full tilt on this today, boys and girls.
Here in the Finebaum class.
Oh, they're not passing my class. They couldn't pass basic English in second grade.
You're producers, but now they're just deucers. You know what I mean?
But, don't you realize that Joe is the president of the Paul Finebaum fan club?
I did not realize
that. Should carry some merit right there. So, I'm not sure if y'all have any members yet or anything, but, I don't know. It's been kind of amusing. But But and Matt definitely from Gainesville is definitely a top 5 caller. There's Jim's disciple. And speaking of Jim, did you go over? Did you take the opportunity, Paul, to go over to Tuscaloosa? And
no,
settle your
my activities were pretty well confined to downtown Birmingham. Never got out of the downtown area.
Well, like I said, y'all need to patch your bridge. Speaking of Jim, I came across an early video of Jim playing baseball and sliding into home plate. I think from the looks of the video, he was 3 or 4. So I guess that if he's 40 years old, I guess it'd be 81 or 82.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's the early days of Jim sliding into home plate. You can always tell he had Cooperstown potential already. But I sent you a copy on Twitter. Look it up. Thanks for taking my call. Aloha.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And that is I-Man.
And a great afternoon. First off, I'd like to tip my hat to the last 2 callers, especially the one with his friend's granddaughter.
Absolutely.
The good thing about the SEC, and I'm sure this is where all across the country, there are no shortage of football players that wouldn't jump at the chance to do what he has. And that's just the way it is. Everybody's always out there willing to help, do what they can, and that's what I love about this show, because there's so many. You hear those stories all the time, and you were talking about a good call, a great call, or whatever. Paul, I don't think a good call is any of those things you and Squirrel were talking about, or John, or anybody. I think it's not great. It's not sapient. It's not smart. A good call is it's just, you don't know what it is. It just happens. And
well, you know what I think a good call is, I-Man, because I feel like I'm in a position to judge. It's just someone that has a conversation, that doesn't read from a script, that doesn't talk over the host, that doesn't scream. I mean, but maybe they do scream, but that just has something to say.
This is what really screws up a call. When it's scripted, people try to be entertainers and go off the chain as to who they aren't. They need to be real, and if they happen to have a comedic value, that's just one of those things that fits. But it doesn't always work when you try to make it. It just happens. It's a freshman making a 17-foot 4-inch putt. It's a guy that pops the baseball over the shortstop's head, and the guy comes in and scores a winning run. It just happens, and it has everything
You're absolutely right about that.
With the timing of what's actually taking place on the show. A good call
you just said something important, man. You know what? One day maybe we'll just have a caller seminar, but I think a good caller needs to be adaptable. And I realize you may call an hour ago wanting to talk about the NFL draft, but if we're talking about something else, it's better if you can move with the program than just completely ignore an hour of conversation and just stay on your own topic.
Well, and that's what's wrong with a lot of the cookie cutter shows out there today. It's 23 minutes of this, 17 minutes of that. It changes topics, and I think all of your better known callers, your regulars, for the lack of a better word, everybody's had a great call. Everybody has had good calls. There's people that nobody even knows. There's been good calls all the time.
Oh, I don't know. I can think of a couple of people that have never had a good call.
Well, but at least they had one call that was better than the other 99. And I don't think a good caller has to call back 3 or 4 times a day. I think
the only way to measure a good caller, I-Man, is if they call at least 6 times a day. Well, I forgot. We're only talking about one person there.
We're just one person, and he likes those big words. But it is what it is. But Paul, I love this show because it's entertaining. It's entertaining to me, and it makes me laugh, and it makes me smile. And I'm like everybody else. I'm tired, overworked, all those kind of things. I live life, and I've lived it for a while. But it's fun. This show is fun, and on its worst day, it's better than 99% of the other folks out there on the airwaves. Have a great day.
Meanwhile, keeping up with a great Twitter feud right now between John Hayes and Darriel. Worth the price of admission.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
A lot of things are happening, both at the University of Tennessee, our next guest's alma mater, as well as the NFL draft. Our good friend Charles Davis from Fox. Charles, it's been too long. How are you, my man?
I'm doing well, Paul. It's great to hear your voice again, and I think I know what the deal is. I've got to get back to calling college football games to talk with you more, right?
Yeah, listen, I know you've got a great gig, but we really miss you in the college football space, as we say. Let's start with college football for a second,
Sure.
Especially at your alma mater. Philip Fulmer is back, and he hired Jeremy Pruitt. Most people seem pretty happy.
Yeah, and I don't think that is incorrect at all. In fact, with all the twists and turns and trials and tribulations to get to Jeremy Pruitt, in a lot of ways, I think people feel like Tennessee may have come out ahead. Now, I just want you to know that on the record, I thought that Greg Schiano, in a lot of ways, was exactly what my university needed. We've gotten to be I was never the toughest guy that's ever played the game. I'm a lot tougher than what people think, but I wasn't this hard-nosed, stone killer type guy. And I had a few teammates that worked, like all good teams. But I think overall, the toughness factor of the Tennessee Vols is you could question it a little bit in recent years, especially last season. And Schiano would have brought that to the university. I thought he got a raw deal in a lot of ways because the reason that he didn't get hired was for some trumped-up report that he's not even really in. But moving on from there to end up with a Jeremy Pruitt who understands the SEC very well, who understands winning football. I had two very prominent Alabama alums that are in the NFL come to me privately and say, listen, do you know him? And I said, I've not had the pleasure of meeting Jeremy Pruitt, which to me, Paul's an upset in and of itself. There's someone that I didn't know. I know of him, but we haven't met. And that sounds arrogant, but you understand where I'm coming from.
Sure.
And the second part of it is, they said, okay, when you get to know him, I think you're going to be very happy he's your head coach. And they articulated their various reasons why. So I've got nothing but high hopes for him. I'm rooting hard for him in my alma mater because it's time for us to get back in the game. All right? We should have been in the game in 2015 and 16, and those were opportunities that were laid on a silver platter that were not realized.
Great stuff from Charles Davis. Charles, let's flip to the draft. And, there's so many angles to hit, but I want to ask you first about Baker Mayfield. Certainly, that was the biggest topic of conversation and quite a bit of dissent. Where are you on him?
I had him as my number 2 quarterback going into draft night, Paul. I had Sam Darnold ahead of him. I just thought that Darnold, with a redshirt sophomore, just a tad more size, a little more of that so-called upside. But I don't know that Baker Mayfield has maxed out everything. I think that, this kid, how angry he plays. But there's one thing about him. When the game's on the line, he gets it done. Go back and look at all these quarterbacks and see what they did in the fourth quarter of games during their college career. And far and away, fourth quarter, and I'm talking about games that are in question, one-score type games, Mayfield's numbers dwarf all the other quarterback contenders we had in there. There is something to that. There is something to a kid when the game's on the line gets it done. And I think we saw him do that in Knoxville to my Volunteers, a couple seasons ago. He's done it to a number of teams. Yeah, he's a 2-time so-called walk-on, but don't let that fool you. And everybody's worried about the size. Well, Fran Tarkenton, Drew Brees, Michael Vick, he's got more size than them. Okay, so let's get over that part of it. Accurate, throwing the football, competitive to the nth degree, and the unfortunate side for him, Paul, and I'll conclude here, is that with Cleveland picking him, he's got to do it like Maverick in Top Gun. Remember they told Maverick?
Oh, sure.
You've got to do it cleaner and better than anyone else because your name's not the greatest in the Navy, son. And he's got to do that strictly because any bump he has, the first word he's going to hear is Manziel. And he's been trying to avoid that comparison for many reasons. But if that's what's going to happen, then in that case, then Cleveland loses. So he's got to just be Mr. Focused, stay out of trouble, no issues whatsoever, just play ball. But the first time he has a bump, you'll hear Manziel, Manziel, Manziel. And truthfully, it's not a good comparison to begin with. It's not accurate. but it was one he would have to live with.
Changing gears, it could have been worse, but it's hard to imagine the fall that Darius Geis took from at one time being the best running back projected in the SEC, a Heisman candidate. What is your sense on having seen him play at LSU and how he ended up going down to the 59th player?
Yeah, I liked him. I think everyone liked him better 2 years ago when he actually stood in for Leonard Fournette. That was when he was at his most dynamic, Paul, and he actually suffered a little bit of what Fournette did his last year. Some dings, right? So he couldn't be the same Lamborghini he had been the year before, but he's thicker and bigger than probably what I think people thought. I think, when he was there and Fournette was there, he looked like a sylph next to Fournette, but don't most of us? And then you realize this is a pretty well put together young man, and he can play. And his fall is not because of the on-field talent. He ran into some bumps off-field in some meetings with teams, in some interpersonal relations, in some things that teams didn't like about what was going on with him, and that started it. In fact, I feel bad because we talked about it on his draft night, which was the second round, and my colleague Mike Mayock had just gotten done articulating why he was still on the board. And the way the draft moves, you don't often have enough time to flesh out everything, so I felt horrible. But my next question was going to be, well, Mike, if it's that bad, how far is this going to go? And do you realize, Paul, he was the very next pick by Washington?
That's amazing.
So the kicker to all of this is, and this is an absolute straight-on-the-table truth, at one point, my last mock draft, I had written in the name Darius Geis at 13 to the Washington Redskins in the first round.
That's amazing.
And I wasn't alone, I don't believe. The reason I did that was because I knew Washington really needed a runner. That was a big deal for them. And there was a lot of discussion about them going against the grain. So it just ended up working out that he went there. But they need a runner in a big way. And I figured he was one of the top, 2-3 running backs in this draft. It made sense, and I thought that he fit them a little bit better than maybe Sony Michel did.
And now, let's state the obvious. Alabama had 12 players taken. I think I read today 5 other players signed free agents. That doesn't mean they'll play. That just means that someone thought they were at least good enough to sign. That's 17. Charles, I mean, I know it's a cliche to say, how does this team ever lose? Well, they really don't lose very often. No. But still.
Yeah, and here's the thing about it, too, Paul. Think of it in terms of this. It's not an accident that it happens year in and year out. And when we talk about the best teams every year in terms of the number of players going into the draft, as a general rule, we're talking about the same teams every year, aren't we? Alabama, Ohio State, right? USC. People who put these guys out there, these programs that are stable, churn guys out. But you just mentioned the free agent number of guys. Don't be surprised if a number of those guys make teams. Because the one thing about Alabama kids, yes, they are 5-star recruits. Yes, they are some of the best in the country. But while they're at Alabama, they get coached really well. I mean, and that's one of the things I think that drives Coach Saban just a little bit crazy. Because if you ask scouts around the NFL, one of the things they'll say when you go, well, you got to tell me something that you worry about with an Alabama kid. You know what they always say, Paul? I don't know that there's any more jumps they can make. They've already they've coached them as high and as hard as they can. I think what you see is what you get. Well, what you see is what you get is usually a 5, 7, 10-year player in the NFL is going to be pretty darn good. That's awfully nice to have. They always talk about floor and ceiling in scouting. Well, the Alabama kids' floors are almost always higher than most people's, even if their ceiling isn't as high because they think they've been coached so well. That's a pretty good credit to the Alabama staff and how they do things.
It's amazing. Charles, it is always a pleasure. Wish we could find you more often, but you work for some network that we can't ever seem to get through to you. But we appreciate your time, as always.
You got it, Paul. I'll give you the private number, okay? We can talk any other time.
Please do, Charles.
All right. Thank you.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
We have Ken Smithmeyer on, the judgment expert. Ken is certainly one of the most knowledgeable people in the world, and we're going to get to him in a second. Before we do that, Casey O'Reilly, our golf pro friend from Jersey, look at this. Working a charity golf outing up there in Jersey today. Can't believe the weather was good enough. Well, golfers are out there, and when they come into the clubhouse, Finebaum Show is on. How about that? That is pretty cool. So I mentioned Ken Smithmeyer, our judgment expert. Always love to talk to Ken about any subject. Ken, before we get too deep, welcome back to the program. Always a thrill to have you.
Thank you. Good to be back. You know, I can't help but comment on that caller you had just before the end of the hour who had professional journalism advice for Laura.
Wow.
I mean, come on now. Anybody who listens to Laura very much or sees Laura very much, if they have any sense about them at all, doesn't say anything or think anything about the volume of words out of her mouth. But they say, holy cow, she's smart, she's articulate, and she knows what the heck she's talking about when she comes to sports. Can you imagine the arrogance of that guy to make a statement like that about her? Is he crazy? Bad judgment.
We believe he is, yes.
bad judgment. So listen, I was sitting out here in my patio in Nashville listening to your show with my wife, and suddenly it dawned on me that I listen to you and I watch your show as often as I can because I realize it's sort of like being a bystander over a big, busy freeway. And first of all, you know the wrecks are coming. You just don't know when, how bad. You got guys like Larry, kind of, drunk driving down a median. You got guys like Darriel and Jim ready to jump off the overpass in despair because you apparently don't love them anymore, like you used to. And there's entertainment value there. But I can tell you exactly what's going on with the Jims and the Darriels who are in a panic over this list. And Paul, I test people. And when I test people, I'm looking to see how they perform, and in particular, I'm looking to see how they perform under pressure. And for a lot of years, guys like Darriel have been on your team, just sort of very easily marching up and down the field, no competition. Then along come John and Mark with this list idea, and what's that put in? That puts in pressure. And we see people's behavior and their judgment change and go badly under pressure. And guys like Darriel and Jim, they don't know what to do about it. You listen to guys like Larry. Larry's still just being Larry, right? Doesn't faze him because he's so genuine. You can love him or hate him, but he is what he is. Probably the same thing is true with Squirrel and I-Man, certainly young Drew. But guys like Darriel and Jim, that list has put pressure on them to perform. And in the face of pressure, they crack and they go off their rails. And it's no different than the coach who makes a bad call in the last 30 seconds of the game that's tied up, and the fans sit at home and go, what the heck is wrong with that guy? Where did his brain go? And Darrell's Exhibit A, Paul. I mean, just Exhibit A. I would love to test that guy, get his data, and then we could do a show where we just dissect Darriel.
Help me understand when you're testing someone for pressure. That's a test. How do you? I mean, I'm not trying to give away your secret sauce, but how do you identify those who can and those who can't?
So here's what it is, and it's simple, but it's complicated. We have two big sections. One is what we call work side, or what we do. So that's you running the show, that's John producing, that's Darriel calling. That is a what we do thing. But what really helps us hold up is our self side, or who we are. That is our character layer. And when that character layer is weak, it's like a pretty house sitting on a cracked foundation. And when the rains come and that foundation comes under pressure, that foundation cracks and down it comes. Conversely, you get a guy with strong character. I talked on the phone with a guy today, 11 years in the NFL. His work side was a little bit weak, but very, very strong.
Jim, Ken, I want to jump in here because something interesting has happened. One of the, I'd say arguably the best-known caller in the show's history, and someone who's been very critical of us, Jim from Tuscaloosa, would like to speak with you if that is permissible.
Oh, let's do it, Paul. Absolutely. I'm in, man.
Mr. Smithmeyer, if you won't interrupt me, I'm going to try to straighten you out because you are a moron. You really are stupid. Not everyone, I'm looking at your picture now, not everyone is as dumb as they look, but you clearly are. How can you come in here and criticize me? I don't know about Darriel. I can only speak for me. For 11 or 12 years, I was the catalyst of this show. Finebaum told people he would let me talk on this show for 4 solid hours if I wanted to. I have been compelling. I'm smart. I'm sapient. And I'm electrifying. And I bring stuff that puts people on the edge of their seat because I know what I'm talking about. And I am diverse in what I say on different subjects. Who in the hell are you, a dumb-looking old man, to come in here and put me down in a most insane way? I don't know what to say. This is the most insane, but it's phony. I know it's phony, trying to pick up the business from Paul's show that is sunk drastically without me on the show, to be honest with you. And Paul's done everything he can to get me back. But you know what? For one day, for 130 minutes or whatever it is, you got me back, you moron. You got me back.
Paul, you hear him crack?
Let's see, I'm cracking.
You hear him crack, Paul?
Oh, listen, you. What the hell are you? What are you talking about? I'm cracking. You're like the people that diss Trump. You all you can do is belittle the truth. That's all you've got. Give me something real. Give me something that I've done that's wrong. How am I cracking? I'm running all over you, you old moron. You're just dummy. You're a total. Look at that face. That's the face of an idiot. I see your squinty eyes. But what have you brought?
Hey Jim, can we allow Ken to at least say one thing here?
It's just crazy what this guy's saying.
So, Paul, notice, first of all, when people have no facts, they attack individuals. So that's what Jim lapses into. He calls me names. He criticizes how I look because he doesn't have any substance. And, in fact, the very histrionics that he's engaged in on the air right now simply support my data. That's all. I know the type. And that this type, the first thing they do when they talk to me is scream at me how stupid I am, how stupid my system is, and I just let them go.
Why don't you talk to me, Ken? Are you afraid to talk to me? Why are you not talking to me? Why are you talking to Paul? I'm talking to you, sir. I'm telling you what an idiot you are.
Jim, it's a three-way conversation, I'm pretty sure.
Hey, Jim, would you? I've done this before. Laura,
tell him to let me talk
Jim.
to me, Paul.
Laura and I, John, Laura, and myself have all done this. Would you be willing to take Ken's judgment test?
Hey, no, Paul, I'd rather take something from a damn Bryce Hospital patient. I'm not going to take a test from this fool. No, that's ridiculous.
Paul, I could have told you his answer to that one. No way. Guys like Jim are afraid to look in the mirror. They're afraid of what looks back at them.
Smith, whatever your name is, I have proven myself over a course of history. I have proven what I can do.
Jim, look, Jim, here's the hard thing for you. You may have been a major league player at one time, but you're sort of like Michael Jordan, who doesn't have his jump shot anymore. And you're having trouble facing up to the reality that the show left you.
What am I having trouble with? I am now the current best caller he's ever had. And I don't even call the show. What have I not? Well, what are you talking about?
You know, maybe back in the day when Paul was in Birmingham, maybe at the AAA level, you might have been a star. But sometimes the world changes. Sometimes the world changes, moves on. It doesn't make you a bad guy, Jim. Listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that not everybody thinks you're the star you think you are. I can't help that.
I didn't say a thing about being a star. I just said I'm the best. This show has had in ever, really ever. And that's people everywhere tell me that. So what are you doing but trying to belittle me to make yourself look good? You're trying to ride on the shoulders of me, and because you know that I'm unpopular on the show now. So that's what you're trying to do. You're not fooling anybody. You're like the regular Democrats that do nothing but like that Wolf woman the other night, that evil fool that did what she did to a sweet, nice lady, Sarah Sanders. That's all you are.
There you go.
Same crap.
There you go. So now he even thinks he has my politics figured out. Boy, this guy just knows everything about everybody, doesn't he? Darn amazing. His talent level. Just amazing.
Jim, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Listen, is there any way for all of us to come together and find some common ground?
I'm not coming together with your stupid show. You and I know you're a smart guy. You know I'm a smart guy. But I'm not coming together with this foolish crap you've got on this air now. These stupid callers, they do nothing but belittle me because they know I'm the best, and they can't stand it because I'm like Trump. I criticize the truth with the truth. You know that. That's a fact.
Okay, well, listen, Jim, I really don't have a choice. I'm here.
And I'm still trying to help you, Paul. I give you my word. I'm still trying to. Having guys like that clown is embarrassing to you and the show.
You're talking about Ken? Yeah, but by the way, Jim, let me say this about Ken. I will not reveal his client list, but you would be amazed at some of the people.
Paul, in this day and time, there are fools everywhere on lists, client lists.
And fools everywhere on the radio, apparently, Jim.
With the heat. As is the use, but moron. That's what you are. That's all you are. Just an idiot. Complete. I can't believe Paul put somebody like you that's so just shallow, so like a clown. You're worse than the kid that was on.
But Jim, why do you feel a good way to respond to me is by name calling?
Name calling? What else is there to call me? But what? Well, I don't know what else to call you. I mean, really, you are an idiot.
Well, Jim, when people have a conversation,
name calling when it's accurate is fitting for you.
No, when decent people have a conversation, they don't call names. They may disagree, they may rebut, but they don't call names. But you keep wanting to drag me down the gutter, and I'm just not going to get down there with you.
You live in the gutter, sir. But you're so incompetent on what you're doing. You're so incompetent on what you're saying.
How do you know?
Jim, that's not
Jim,
true.
how do you know?
Jim, honestly, that's really
how
not
do you
true.
know?
Anyway, I don't think we're going to resolve this as much as I would like to.
You're not going to resolve anything with that.
Let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya, could we, please?
No, you're not going to resolve anything because I don't even want to try to be around somebody like this guy. Same with Squirrel. Same with iMonkey. You know, my 12 years, I've never wanted to be around with. They're dumbasses, Paul. What do I want to be around with? Common trash.
Okay, I think we have Jim. Listen, I was hoping that you and Dr. Ken Smithmeyer could come to some.
You were hoping, Paul. You can say that I see that smile on your face, boy. You. By the way,
Darriel, your colleague over in Georgia, has agreed to take Ken's judgment test.
Good. That's exciting, Paul. You know what? Paul, whether it's Jim, whether it's Darriel, because anybody that were actually to do this, they'll see that it's a very positive process. I don't sit around and pick people apart. I don't call people names like Jim just called me. I don't presume to know somebody's intelligence level or motivations or education or experience. I tend to give people benefit of the doubt until a guy like this calls in and he proves he doesn't deserve it. Then makes my case for me without me saying much.
Jim has left the building.
Before
you go, Ken, and I know you've already alluded to this, but someone like Jim, who was the so-called best caller, what do you hear when you engage? What did you hear when you engaged with him a minute ago, as much as you possibly could?
Well, yeah, Paul, you heard it too, right? And I wasn't on the air to talk to Jim. You had him on, and that's fine. But he immediately lapses into name calling. He immediately personalizes things that makes people skeptical of his own motivation. So he's not a guy that wants to have a discussion. I'll bet you I can have this discussion with Darriel. I kind of enjoyed Darriel's calls myself, by the way. If I was making a top 10 list, he'd be high up on it. Darriel's just a diehard homer. But that's just not Jim. And I really do believe, Paul, that in his case, he's just disappointed that the show has kind of left the station without him and can't cope with it. But that's okay. I'm sure he'll have a happy life without
By the way, that's not unusual, is it, Ken? There are some people who never can quite get over whether it's being the star of the high school baseball team or whatever, and then in their life that something in the past seems to be their guiding light as opposed to what could be happening now or what could be in the future.
Oh, Paul, I talk to people, and I'm talking about 50, 60-year-old people in senior positions in organizations. They got a burr under their saddle that's 40 years old. Something, a parent said something to them, a coach, something that is burned into their brain that's negatively affected their behavior all these years. It's astounding. And I'm not saying that's the case with Jim. Of course, I don't know Jim any more than Jim knows me, just what we hear of each other on the radio. But, yeah, I see that all the time, and it's very, very hard for people to get past it when it happens.
Yeah, no. I mean, listen. I think you could say that about people in all walks of life and things, whether it's in work or in their personal life. But yeah, it's amazing to me, and I'm glad you listen. We had you on just to have some fun. I didn't intend for you to get into a barroom brawl with Jim, but he called in, and we thought that would be interesting.
Hard to have a barroom brawl, Paul, when only one guy's throwing beer at the other. And, if that was fun for Jim, he can have at it. I'm a big boy.
Great to have you. Ken, I know you'll come back. We would love to talk to you about serious issues, and the next time we'll make sure the doors are locked.
Okay, Paul, great. Good to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.